Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be reading from a book called Our Missing Hearts by Celeste Ng. It's late afternoon by the time he finally reaches the address. A big brick building, flowered window boxes, a huge green door. Not an apartment building, a single family townhouse, a thing he had not known existed here. The Duchess's castle. Cautiously, he studies it from across the street. In stories, you might find anything inside a castle. Riches, an enchantress, an ogre waiting to devour you. But this is it, the place his mother has sent him. Street name and numbers written in her own hand. A leap of faith, then. He climbs the marble steps and reaches for the brass knocker and raps it 3 times against the green painted wood. It feels an eternity, but it's really only a minute or two before an older white man answers the door. He's a bit stout, in a uniform, shiny brass buttons on navy blue wool, like the captain on a ship. He eyes Bird coldly, and Bird swallows twice before he can speak. "I am here to see the Duchess," Bird announces, and as if by magic, the captain nods and steps aside. A foyer of sunny yellow, a fireplace with a fire lit, even though it's only October. Cream-colored tiles on the floor, studded with squares of ambery brown. A marble-topped table with scrolled legs squats in the middle of the room, its only apparent purpose to hold the biggest vase of flowers Bird has ever seen. All around him, the lights are haloed with gold. "I'm here to see the Duchess," Bird repeats, trying to sound surer than he is, and the captain squints down at him. "I'll have to call up," he says. "Who may I say is here, please?" And because he is hungry and thirsty and exhausted, because he has walked for miles on an empty stomach, because his head feels uncannily detached from his body like a balloon just floating over his shoulders, because he feels slightly unreal and he's not sure this place is real, let alone this city, nor the Duchess he's come to see, Bird answers as if he were in a fairy tale too. "Bird Gardner," he says, "Margaret's son." "If you will wait here," the captain says. Bird hovers uncertainly by one of the chairs near the fireplace. It is covered in sandy velvet and reminds him of a throne. With his fingertips, he traces the chiseled grooves on the arms, and words his father has taught him float back. Mahogany, alabaster, filigree. He clears his throat. On the mantel is a little gold clock, a little golden woman gesturing decorously toward the time. Almost 5. Soon his father will head home and discover that he's gone. The captain returns. "If you'll follow me," he says. He strides through an archway and down the hall, and Bird trails behind him, cautious, peering round corners, waiting for a monster to spring. But all they pass is a palace worth of luxuries, a paneled silk screen, stitched with cypress trees and cranes, and a pagoda in the far-off distance. A sofa of yellow silk with cushions shaped like candy rolls, a huge oval dining room, its floor a dizzying parquet. Everything here seems to be touched with gold. The handles of the urns and vases on mantelpieces, the twisted tassels on the drapes, even the claws of the lion's feet on which the tables and chairs rest. Then they are at the foot of a grand, swooping staircase, spiraling up and up and up, a lush, tawny carpet spilling down its center. He has never seen such a staircase. A delicate chandelier dangles on a chain swathed in velvet. Bird counts. 1 story, 2, 3, 4, and far above them a compass-shaped skylight, a blue crystal pool of sky. "This way, please," the captain says. And then Bird sees it, just beside the staircase, a little elevator, wood-paneled and parquet-floored. An elevator in a house, he thinks in awe. The captain gestures with one hand, and Bird steps inside, feels as if he's climbing into a polished nutshell. "She's waiting for you upstairs," the captain says. He pulls a brass grate shut, caging Bird inside. As the elevator shutters upward, Bird's mind whirls. Around him the brass bars of the grate rattle as if something is trying to get out or in. He has no idea what he is heading toward. What will the Duchess be like? Will she be kind, or will she be threatening? He pictures the evil queens from storybooks, all malice sheathed in charm. Trust, he thinks to himself. In the stories, you had to trust strangers on your quest. Even this elevator is decorated as befits a palace. Miniature golden frames around sketches of ancient buildings and winged women. A small white telephone. On the back wall, a round mirror bulges and flexes, bending his face back to him in distorted form. An ogre's, or maybe a dwarf's. At last, the elevator opens. A living room as big as their apartment back home. Another table, another bowl billowing with flowers. In the polished surface, he can see his own face peering back up at himself. Underfoot, the carpet is gold-patterned. The home of nobility, for sure. And then there she is, gliding through French doors at the end of the room, the Duchess. Younger than he'd expected, regal, tall, blonde hair clipped short around her head, pearls, a blue drapey pantsuit instead of a gown, but it is clear to him she is a woman of power. For a moment, Bird's voice deserts him, and he simply stares up at her. She doesn't break the silence, just looks down at him in bemusement. Are you the Duchess? He finally asks, but he already knows she is. And who do we have here? She asks, one eyebrow raised, skeptical. Bird, he says, trembling, Margaret's son. For a moment he fears she will say, who? But she doesn't. Instead she says rather coldly, why are you here? My mother, he says, the answer so obvious it feels ridiculous to say it. I came here to find her. What makes you think she's here? The Duchess asks, the smallest tendril of curiosity curling the edge of her voice. Because, he says, and pauses, feeling for the answer inside himself. Because I want to know why she left me. Because I want her back. Because I want her to want me back, too. She sent me a message, he says. The Duchess purses her lips, and he can't tell if she is perplexed or pleased or angry. For a moment, she's like a teacher, weighing the answer he's given, deciding between praise and punishment. I see. So your mother, she asked you to come here? Bird hesitates, wonders if he should lie, if this is a test. His chest tightens. I'm not sure, he admits, but she left me this address a long time ago. I thought you might know where she is. From his pocket he pulls a scrap of paper, or what remains of it, tattered and crumpled, edges smudged with blue dye from his jeans. But there it is, in his mother's handwriting, the very address in which they stand. I see, the Duchess says again. And you came here alone? Where's your father? How does she know about his father? Bird thinks with a jolt. He doesn't know I'm here, he says, and as the words pass his lips, it hits him again how alarmingly true this is. His father has no idea where he is. His father cannot help him or save him. The Duchess leans closer, scrutinizing him, her eyes needle-sharp. Up close he can see that her face is only just beginning to wrinkle, that her hair is not yet gray. She's maybe the age, he realizes, that his mother would be. So who does know you're here? She demands, a steel glint of menace in her tone. Bird's throat swells. No one, he says. I didn't tell him. I didn't tell anyone. I came alone. You can trust me, is what he wants to say. A sweaty panic slithers over him, that he might have come so far and in the end be turned away, that this dragon of a duchess in her gilded palace might swallow him and trap him forever. Interesting, the Duchess says. She turns away, and to Bird it feels like a very bright light being switched off. Wait here, she says, and without another word she sweeps out, leaving him alone. Bird circles the room, unable to be still. Dusty gold drapes at the windows, through which he can see the glitter of the traffic on the street below. A grand piano in the corner. On the end table, a silver-framed photograph of a woman and a man. The Duchess, much younger and with longer hair, hardly more than a girl, and someone who might be her father. The old Duke, he decides, though the man in the picture is wearing a polo shirt and khakis, and they seem to be on the deck of a sailboat, blue sky and bluer water colliding at the horizon behind them. a stern, almost angry expression on his face. He wonders where the old Duke is. He wonders how the Duchess knows his mother. He wonders what his mother has been doing all these years away from him. If she will recognize him when she sees him. If she's sorry. If she ever thinks about him. If she regrets. Outside, the sky is darkened, hardened to flat, steely gray. To his amazement, he isn't hungry at all anymore. He imagines his father arriving at home to their tiny cinder-block dorm, finding the apartment dark and deserted, searching for him, calling his name. It's okay, Dad, he thinks. I'll be back soon. He feels oddly alert and alive, his veins electrified. He is almost there, after all this time. Far off in the recesses of the house, a clock strikes a deep, sonorous chime. 5 o'clock. And then, as if it is a signal, the Duchess returns. If you really are who you say you are, she says, then prove it. What color is your bicycle? What? You should be aware, she adds, that if you aren't who you claim, I have no compunction at all about calling the authorities. Bert stops, bewildered. His father has not let him ride a bike since that day he fell off and the neighbor called the police. I don't have one, he blurts out. The Duchess's face remains calm and impassive and blank. What kind of milk do you put on your cereal in the morning, she asks. Again, Bert is too baffled to speak. He hesitates, but the only thing to do is to tell the truth, however odd it seems. I eat my cereal dry, he says. Once more the Duchess makes no reply. Where in the cafeteria do you eat lunch, she says, and Bert pauses, seeing himself as if from above, a solitary dot perched on the steps with a brown paper sack. I don't eat lunch in the cafeteria, he says. I eat outside, by myself. The Duchess says nothing, but she smiles, and by this he understands that he has passed. So you want to see your mother, she says. It is not a question. Well then, come with me. In the hallway, she presses a button on the wall, and a panel slides away. Magic? No. An elevator, cunningly camouflaged in the hall. The same elevator, in fact, in which he arrived. At a touch of the Duchess's finger, the button labeled B glows the color of flame. When the doors open again, they are in a dim cave, an underground garage, a sleek black sedan with the engine already running. A mustached man in a suit stands at attention beside the waiting car. The footman, Bird thinks, as they slide into the back seat. And then they're off. The car glides up the ramp and out of the garage and injects itself into the crowded streets, smoothly, liquidly, regally. From inside, Bird can hear nothing at all. Not the voices of the throngs that gather at street corners, thinning and bunching with the rhythm of the crossing lights, like a great snake inching its way downtown. Not the growling engines of the cars that surround them in a pack. Not the honking that he knows must pierce the air, those deafening blares of impotent frustration. There is simply no sound, and through the tinted windows the city scrolls by in sepia, like a silent film. To him they seem to be not driving, but floating. Seatbelt, please, the Duchess says beside him. It would be a shame to get this far and then crack your skull open. Bert opens his mouth, and the Duchess shuts it with a glance. I'm not here to answer questions, she says. That's your mother's job, not mine. After that, she says nothing at all, as they weave along the river and down into a long tunnel, and then back out again into twilight, the moon just beginning to emerge. Time moves and fits and starts, starting and stopping like the traffic around them, and sometimes Bird dozes and wakes to find they haven't moved at all, and sometimes he is sure he hasn't closed his eyes, but they seem to have teleported a great distance, nothing outside familiar. And then around them, the traffic congeals and clots once more, slowing them to a crawl, and finally, he doesn't know how much time has passed. The sun has gone down, and the streets around them are calm and nearly deserted, lined with brownstones, and the car pulls to the side of the road and stops at last. Listen carefully, the Duchess says, with new urgency in her voice, as if this is the last time she'll speak to him, as if the real test is about to begin. Follow these instructions precisely, she tells him. I can't be responsible for what happens if you don't. To Bird, bleary-eyed, half dizzy with excitement and fatigue, this does not seem strange. In fact, he expects no less. In stories, there are always inscrutable rules to obey. Ignore the golden sword. Use the old and rusty one instead. No matter how thirsty you are, do not drink the wine. Do not speak a word, even if you are pinched and beaten, even if they cut off your head. After the car drives away, leaving him standing on the sidewalk, he does exactly what the Duchess has commanded. He walks 2 blocks over and 3 blocks up, crosses the street, and there it is, just as she said, a big brownstone with a red door, every window covered. It will look deserted, but appearances can be deceiving. As instructed, he ignores the wide front stoop and skirts around to the side of the house. No one must see you enter the gate. Twice a car passes while he's hunting for the latch, the rough wood of the gate snagging at his fingertips, and then he has it, the metal cool and solid and smooth. He glances over his shoulder at the lighted windows in the houses around him, and when he's sure there's no one watching, he turns the catch and the gate swings open. At the back of the house is a door. You must be absolutely silent as you approach. With tentative feet, Bird picks his way through the tangle of weeds and grass. This must have been the back garden once, untouched for ages. Here and there he stumbles across a sapling, scrappy and saucy, whipping its branches in his face. But in the moonlight he sees the faint glitter of a path, shiny grit embedded in the cement to point the way, and he follows it toward the dark hulk of the house. Enter these 5 numbers, 89604, and it will open for you. He feels his way along the wall of the house, as if stroking a sleeping dragon with his fingers, looking for the soft spot. Brick, brick, brick. And then there is the door, a keypad. Too dark to see, but he counts the buttons, presses the passcode. A faint beep. He turns the knob. Inside, a narrow hallway leading into a darker gloom. You must shut the door behind you. Even though it will be completely dark, you won't be able to see her until you do. Slowly, he closes it, and the outside world narrows to a wedge, then a sliver, then disappears. The latch clicks, sealing him into darkness. And then he hears footsteps hurrying toward him. A small light clicks on, scattering golden sparks across his sight. His mother, astonished, holding out her arms, throwing them around him, her warmth, her scent, the shock and wonder and delight on her face. "Bird," she cries, "oh, Bird, you found me." So here he is, Bird, her Bird, taller than she'd expected, thinner, the last scrapings of baby fat nearly gone from his face, a lean, cool face, a skeptical face, a hard set to his mouth, a squaring of the jaw she can't quite place. Not Ethan's, certainly not hers. "Bird," she says, "you've gotten so tall." "Well," he says, suddenly reserved, "it's been kind of a long time." He doesn't trust her. She can see that already. The way he lingers by the door, not meeting her eyes. Yet, she thinks, he doesn't trust her yet. She flicks off the light. "We have to avoid attention," she says. She can see him thinking, already, "What is this place?" The hallway is narrow, and behind her Bird's footsteps slow as he picks his way between unfamiliar walls. A stutter step, a pause. The soles of his sneakers scuffing the floor as he drags his feet. "This way," she says. "Wait. Be careful, the floor is uneven here. Watch your step." She's speaking quickly, uncharacteristically chatty, words tripping over each other as they fall from her mouth, but she can't help it. "I knew you'd figure it out," she says, as they make their way down the darkened hall. "I knew you were smart enough." "How?" he says. At the entrance to the living room, she stops and waits for him to catch up, and his hand brushes the small of her back, reaching for something known, something steady. She wants to take it in hers, to press it to her face, but she knows he's not ready yet. "Someone told me," she says. After the darkness of the hallway, the living room is blinding. Bird's hand flies to shade his eyes as if he stepped into blazing sun. She watches him bring the room into focus, taking it in piecemeal. The wallpaper, peeling off in strips like old skin. A faded and fraying sofa hunched by the wall, a folding card table covered with tools. A single lamp minus its shade, naked bulbs staring. She can see his eyes swiveling to the plywood nailed over the window frames, the blurry bullseyes on the ceiling where the rain has seeped in. To herself, shaggy and overgrown, in ragged t-shirt and worn-out jeans, hiding like a hermit in the murky darkness. It is not where he expected her to be. She is not who he expected either. "You must be tired," she says. "I've got a room ready for you." She leads him upstairs, the orange-red stair runner muffling their steps. All the way up, square blotches in the wallpaper mark the places where pictures once hung. Whose house is this? No one's anymore. Careful, watch your step. The banister's broken here. At the landing, she opens the door at the top of the stairs. A large room that clearly belonged to a small child once upon a time. When she flips the light switch, the ceiling lamp features a clown's face, a red-nosed screw holding the glass dome in place. In the corner, a crib still stands, one side lowered, the mattress bare. She's swept the room clean, but this cannot make it inviting. Part of the ceiling plaster has crumbled, exposing the slender wooden slats beneath like bones. The windows are sheathed in black. "Garbage bags," she explains, "to hide the light. We have to be careful. The neighbors think it's abandoned." Bird sets his book bag on the floor, touches one hand to the plastic stretched over the window frame. She's done the same herself many times, feeling the faint tremble as a car thrums by on the street below. "I set this up for you," she says, "just in case you made it." She smooths the sleeping bag laid out on the window seat, fluffs the small throw pillow at its head. "I'm sorry I don't have a proper bed. More comfortable than the floor, at least." Bird shrugs one shoulder and half turns away. From outside, the thin wail of a siren worms its way through the plastic sheeting, growing louder, then fading again. If everything was different, she thinks, if she had all those years with him as she should have, perhaps this language would be less foreign, the language of those beginning to shed their childhood, all gestures and subtext, all reserve and disdain. Maybe she would have learned to understand it. She wonders if Ethan does. "Are you hungry?" she asks, and though she's quite sure it's a lie, he shakes his head no. "Just rest then," she says. "We'll talk later." She pauses, then turns back. "Bird, I'm so glad you're here." As a toddler, he'd cried when other people cried. Certain songs on the stereo filled him with pins and needles, tingling and moving even a finger would increase the agony. How unbearable that Jackie paper came no more. How tragic that she was leaving home after living alone for so many years. How terrifying to be the only living boy in New York. The music peeled his skin away, note by note, and the naked muscles throbbed and stung. "Stop, Mama," he would sob. "Make it stop." And Margaret, in horror, ran to the stereo and paused the music and folded him in her arms. It stunned her, how hungry and wondrous he was at it all. He was a quiet child, watching intently, soaking everything in, the good and the bad, the joy and the pain. The pink nipples of the cherry tree swelling into blossoms, the dead sparrow folded up small on the sidewalk, the exuberant rush of loose balloons soaring upward into a wide blue sky. How porous the boundary was between him and the world, as if everything flowed through him like water through a net. She'd worried about him, moving through a rough world as a tender bare heart, beating out in the open where anything could cause a bruise. This boy standing in front of her looks like Bird and sounds like Bird. She'd know him anywhere, that face. But there's something between them now, through which she can't quite see or hear him clearly, something opaque and hard, a layer of tortoiseshell, as if he's standing, always, just beyond arm's length. Something has scarred over in him. Oh, Bird, she thinks. Upstairs, Bird peeks out into the hallway. No light, only a faint gibbous glow on the wall from the single lamp downstairs. He tiptoes past dark room after dark room. In the bathroom, the toilet and sink are green-streaked and grimy. Moss stretches from the rusty bathtub in a lush carpet. Only one other room seems to be occupied. A bare mattress lies in one corner. An old table lamp, shadeless, squats beside it on the floor. His mother's room. The sharp scent of sweat in the air. His mother, who planted flowers in the sunshine and whispered stories into his ears at night, has somehow become this strange woman lurking in the shadows. He wishes his father were here to explain this, to help him understand, to decide what to do. Back on the landing, the light from downstairs seems dingy, like something reused, and he has to guide himself by his fingertips all the way down the hall and back to his lonely room. When Bird wakes, Margaret is sitting on the floor by his bedside, feet curled under her on the worn carpet, her gaze resting softly on his face, as if she'd been studying him in his sleep, patiently waiting for him to wake, which she has. "What time is it?" he croaks. Under the darkened windows, it's impossible to tell if it's day or night. "Just past midnight," she says. She's brought him a mug of instant coffee, which he doesn't like. She can see it in his face. Of course he doesn't like it. What kind of mother brought her child coffee? She should have brought something else, though coffee is all she has. She's out of practice at this, at everything. But the mug is warm and cozy in the chill of the room, and he struggles to his seat, sips it. She sips hers too, bitter but comforting, like strong medicine. "The gas is shut off," she says, "so no heat, no real cooking, just a hot plate. But the water and power are still on, which is all I need." "What is this place?" he asks. But she doesn't answer. There are other things she needs to explain first. "Start at the beginning," she reminds herself. "This is why you called him here." Alright guys, I'm gonna stop here. I hope that you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for sitting with me.